Before the success stories, the progress, there was you. You who made a choice to grow, to inspire, to overcome your own challenges. At NASM, we're in service of your limitless potential, because when you keep growing, we all get stronger, and we'll never stop making your journey our mission. Join the fitness leader. Become a fitness leader. Become a certified personal trainer.
You're listening to Random Fit with hosts Wendy Batts and Ken Miller, winner of a Gold Markham Award for Digital Media.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts here with friend and co-host Ken Miller. Ken, how are things?
Things are great, Wendy. Thanks for asking. Hope
Love
all is
it.
good with you.
Everything is great. And before we dive into our topic for today, I wanted to let everyone know that if you look in our show notes below, you're going to see a link to a survey. If you take the time to answer those questions, you have the opportunity to win a $100 gift card to Amazon. But that information also allows Ken and I an opportunity to go through the content and information you provide so we can better our podcast and provide you with information and content that you want to hear. So please, for us and for the sake of our podcast team and network, we would love for you to take the time to fill that out. And then we hope you win. That's a big one.
Fingers crossed for everybody. Good luck.
Okay, so today's topic, we are talking about, and I think this is so important, the intention of what your life is about, intentional living. We're talking about your mind, we're talking about your body, and we're talking about plates. So we're going to talk a little bit about nutrition. And this one is something that hits home for me. I just did some work with a huge foundation that had some unbelievable golfers that attended. And everything we discussed was always about the intention of their shot, intention of their food choices, intention of their movement, and how their body and mind and everything connected with the ball, connected with just everything in general and in their life. And at the same time, there were other people that were with me that were taking courses on just this and talking about nutrition. And when we get into it, it was very interesting, some of the stuff that they talked about when you're eating. And so I really want to provide you guys with the information that I learned over the last few weeks, and especially at that one tournament. But then I'm also probably going to share a really that happened story with you guys, because it was with a professional football and baseball player, actually, that really wasn't intentional in his workouts, just did it because he was told to do it. So when we took a step back and made our movements more intentional, it was phenomenal to see the change.
And what a cliffhanger, Wendy.
Well, now you have to listen to the whole thing.
Let's see. Please tell me a story.
So this one time? No.
Yeah. Intention is huge. And I'm glad we were talking about this, because this is going to be an episode I'm going to share with my clients when it comes to that time that you have in the facility with me. You're making an investment in yourself. You're making an investment in your body, but financially or time-wise, whatever that investment may be, it doesn't matter as much as your mind being there, that focus and I'll say internalizing, but being present with who you are and why you're there. That's a conversation I've been having more and more and more, because as we go through life, there's kids, there's work, there's family, there's social, all of that. But we're so worried about being a part of the next thing that's happening, we forget about where we are right now and in the moment. So I'm glad we're talking about this, because it's a conversation piece that needs to be had. So if you haven't thought about being present, and we're not just talking about the we are talking about what you're doing, not just in the gym, but overall in life. So, all right, tell your story.
Nope, not yet. But I think to piggyback off of that, you want to be, you kind of mentioned it, but clarity and focus, I think, is key.
Yeah.
Because we want to take the time to think about what is it what are our goals? And then what specifically, we talk about these SMART goals all the time. It needs to be specific and it needs to be measurable and so on. And I have goals, but if I don't sit down and really think intentionally how I'm going to achieve them, I'm just going to just do it. It's never going to happen. And I think it's important for us to think about what's driving us forward. Why do we have these goals? You know, so when we're thinking about the clarity and focus of being in the moment, outside of yoga, by the way, but being in the moment just in our life and our day to day, we also need to think a little bit about what's motivating us in order to have those intentions. Like, what is the outcome? And that to me piggybacks a lot with the focus of why we want to do something. I am terrible at this, but this is something that I have made a goal of mine, to be in the moment, especially when I'm with my child. I put my phone down and I take time to spend with him and talk about his day and talk about it, because he's the most important thing to me always, but especially in that moment, it's important for him to realize that. And I never really thought about it. I always had my phone in my hand, waiting for a text message or see if an email came through or a call. Like, I felt like I always had it. But I think it's important too to think about the values and why we're doing this, because this, what we're doing in our day to day with our family, really does start to tremble into, or trickle, not tremble, but well, maybe trembling, depending on what you're doing, but trickle into how we take our job and how what we're doing. Are we intentional and why we're writing an email, and are we very clear and focused of the point we're trying to get across? But then also too, what's more important and why we're here is, what are we doing in the gym? Are we just doing it to do it, or what?
Hopefully it's not the or what. with yeah, with clarity and focus, it comes down to why. What is your why? There's a book, there's books on finding your why. And once you've found in yourself, why are you picking up that dumbbell? Why are you swinging that kettlebell? Why are you doing that overhead squat? You get down to that and you hold on to that. That's the reason why you're doing what you're doing. And when you brought up that time with your son and being present and putting the distractions away, that's huge. And when I think personally about why I work out and why I do what I do, to sweat and to be as strong as I can be, however strong that is, it's so that for my why, it's so I could be there physically for my children as they go through playing their sports and being integrated into throwing a baseball, being able to run. That's my why. And I like to reflect on that from my clients. Why do you want to do this? Some of it's like, when I'm 80 years old, I don't want somebody to have to physically take care of me because I want to be independent. Others, it's their why and what gives them their focus on why are they picking up that dumbbells, so that they don't have low back discomfort, so they can be mobile through their lives. They can get past that 5 o'clock work day and still have some energy for themselves. And that's the clarification on why they're doing things. So if you haven't thought about what it is that you're doing or why you're doing it, then finding that clarification or that clarity and that focus is going to be 10 times harder. So go back to, why are you doing this? And it kind of blends into the other topics that we're talking about. So it all doesn't all individually parcel out into its own entity, but it all blends in.
Well, and I think it's important to really reiterate your emotions, your thoughts, your behaviors. All of those you need to know what those are, and you need to know what drives you forward. I know I have certain things listed that I want to achieve. However, how am I going to get there? I've got to make specific choices. I've got to be focused. I have to be clear, because there's so many distractions in our world. But if we bring it back, as you mentioned, to the gym, and we think about mindful movements, this is where the story comes in. So when I was doing some of the things with some of the golfers this past weekend, we had a inspirational speaker come and sit down. And this individual he was not known for his golf game, I will say that, but he's very well known in football. And he then went over to baseball and then does some announcing, and he goes out and speaks about his own personal foundation, and he has his own beliefs and he has his own thoughts, and he's very intentional with what he wants to achieve in his own personal foundation, and very intentional when he's speaking, the way that he presents himself, the thoughts that he has, the way he pauses. I mean, as someone that does a podcast, I'm like, man, I really need to spend time with this person because he's amazing when he presents. He doesn't say, which I know is a thing that I do. And he doesn't say us. He's very clear. He's very focused on what he's doing. However, he was on my table the entire week that we were together, and his body, even though he looks amazing, he has the build that a lot of people dream of having. He was broken core wise. There was a lot of dysfunction happening throughout his midsection. There were some aches and pains and things that he wasn't really aware of until we got into the gym. I manually worked on him. We found some issues going on, but then we took him into the gym and did just some corrective exercises and basic movement patterns that he could not do. And so when I was asking about his program of what do you do, he does an SAQ one day, so speed, agility, and quickness. He does Olympic lifting one day. He does the push pulls one day. He does everything where you're looking at it on paper. He does a core day. I'm like, that is amazing. I'm like, show me your core workout. And it was farmer carries, lateral movements, a bunch of crunches, things that require bending, moving, and doing things with the spine, but nothing to protect the little muscles that help keep the spine intact and keep it safe. And so doing basic things like planks, plank walks, things where his shoulders had to come into full available range of motion. He's a winger. He could not get some of these muscles to fire to have ideal form in performing some of these exercises. And he couldn't believe it. His assistant couldn't believe it. They actually recorded it to play later. And so it was a big wake up call. And you know what he said to me? When I'm in the gym, I'm not as intentional as when I'm on stage. And I need to be more present in my movements and what I'm doing in order to benefit my own health. And that's one of the things where it really hit home. And I'm like, we are doing intentional living on this podcast because someone at that caliber with all of these people able to help him, no one took the time to explain these little things that we try to get across to you guys in our podcast, because they will make a substantial difference. And when he goes to lift some of these other weights, he's going to be able to lift more without as much effort because all systems are a go.
Yeah. And that's a great story, Wendy, because you take somebody like that, they've operated at the highest competitive level, professional, multiple sports, and they realize I got this far, right? I got this far without understanding this much about myself. So I can only imagine for that person that once they realize I haven't achieved what I wanted to achieve in life, or I've gotten this far with what I know now, but think of how much farther I can go now that I understand my shortcomings, if you will, as minor as they may be, but it was enough to get his attention to where he's thinking now, man, what else can I do with this body? And I can see that as a big motivation to keep learning, that for him to keep learning more about himself so that he can strengthen or have those deficits be less of a deficit. And that in and of itself, I can only imagine in working with athletes that that's even more motivation to do more regarding that aspect of their life. And then, as you're saying, as they're more present with their own physical well-being, they're going to be more focused and more motivated to do even more of that. And who knows what the potential is physically, even though they may be retired from the competitive field, it's still you versus you when it comes to Monday versus Tuesday versus Wednesday, and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. And today on Random Fit, myself, Wendy Batts, and Ken Miller are talking about the intentional living. When you're thinking about, we talked about your mind and how important it is to be clear and focused and motivated and just present in the moment of what you're doing. And then having your rationale be very clear of why, as Ken said, know your whys. We've talked about mind, body, but now let's kind of talk about the plate. And I think when we talk about plate, we're really talking about nutrition. And there are courses out there that I've taken, and I had a coworker of mine that's on our team talking about taking this one particular class, and she said it's about intentionally eating. And I'm like, can you go into more detail about it? And it was fascinating because they, in these courses, are having you smell it, look at it, listen to it. I'm like, listen to it. I'm listening to my chicken. My chicken isn't saying anything, but like listening to like crackles or listening to if there's a sound in it, then putting it into your mouth. And before you just start chewing and swallowing, like intentionally chewing and thinking about the flavors, thinking about why you chose that to put into your mouth, which I mean, I don't take that kind of time to think about what I'm putting in my mouth. I'm like, oh, that looks good. I eat and go because I'm always in a hurry. I'm not present in the moment. However, if you really want to be successful in your nutrition journey, as well as in the gym, taking a few moments to really chew your food, put your fork down, enjoy the flavors, you're not going to eat as much and you're going to fill up quicker than if you eat and go. And so I challenge you guys to do that. I did that all week and I did pretty well, except for they had cakes and stuff there where to say no sugar, but didn't necessarily. However, it was interesting because I could clean a plate and move on and be done in 15 minutes or less, to where even my family is like, man, you eat so fast. I'm like, yeah, because I got to move on to the next thing. I don't have time for this. And I think if you want to be healthy, try to slow things down and maybe think of those exact steps and listen to see if your chicken talks to you.
Yeah. Chicken saying, put me down, put me down. Well, something from when my kids were very young, when it comes to it, my best rendition at the time about intentional eating is from when they were they take 3 or 4 bites just to make it small enough for them to chew. And once I saw that and I realized how fast they were eating, for one, I realized they were emulating me, which really forced me, to reflect and say, if I'm going to have them slow down themselves, I have to do that myself, because your kids, as they learn their behaviors from you. So as I told them, and I brought it up to them because I started implementing it in my own eating habits, is to chew your food at least 25 times. And my instruction to them was to chew it 25-ish, whatever it takes for that food to get nice and mushy. And from that vantage point, they had the time for that food to be able to sit in their mouth so that they can enjoy and experience what those things that you just said, Wendy. They not only enhance the digestive process, because a lot of people don't realize digestion just doesn't happen in your gut and in your intestines and your stomach. Digestion starts in your mouth. So first off, my mind went, well, let's get them to break down food, chew it, get that saliva to mix in with their food so that once it gets into their stomach, it's already mostly broken down and digestion is going to be easier, versus the digestive system from the stomach on below having to work harder with bigger chunks of food. But I wanted them to mentally and from a taste standpoint, experience their food, if you will, if not to just slow them down, and to let them experience textures and tastes and savory, and difference between savory and sweet, and textures between something that's more fibrous, something that's easier to eat and swallow. But overall, it's just being moment. Plus, at the time, I was more or less just trying to spend more time with them at the table, for, from my vantage point, me to slow down so I can spend more time with them at the table, and for them to actually sit and enjoy their food, and we can talk a little bit more while someone's chewing. So there are multiple motivations for them to be more present when it comes to eating, but one being just to help facilitate the digestive process, but for two, experience food the way food was meant to be experienced.
Well, and I think too, it's important, especially if you're on a journey where you want to start eating healthier and you maybe want to lose weight or maybe you want to gain muscle. There's, specific protocols and different types of food choices and timing of your meals. But I think it's also too, to really get to know your body. What are your hunger cues? Are you eating just to eat? And that's me. I'm like, oh, I haven't eaten. I might as well just eat. And I'm not even hungry, or I haven't even taken the time to realize, like, am I hungry? And my stomach is like, rawr. I'm working with a client. And they're like, geez, did you eat today? I'm like, I did, but apparently I need to eat again, or maybe I missed my time. So I think it's really important for you to take the time, listen to your body, think about the cues, think about your choices, and then go through the process of really being present at the table with your food, and not just sitting in the car on the go because you're running to practice. Like, I speak from experience, because we're all eating in the car because we have to go. So I think, finding that kind of blends into like really balancing your lifestyle, taking the time, think about what's important, think about self-awareness, think about your body, achieving balance, and it will put you in a better mindset in general. So when we're talking about mindfulness, that automatically does that, and then when you're in the gym, what are the exercises that you're choosing for your mind and your body? But another one to piggyback off of that long story of the individual that was really struggling doing some exercises that we would think would be some of the starting exercises, you have to really think about what muscles you're working. You have to think about every single repetition that you do, and what is the prime mover. Think about the muscle that you want to be firing. See if you feel it in that position, and if you don't, why? But slow things down. We talk about tempo all the time. In the very beginning, when you go into the gym, it's not about just lifting weights to the sake of lifting weights. And that was one of the things he said. I just go in, I have this amount of time. I need to get all of these exercises in. Right. So I just do it. I need to leave and get on a plane and go wherever. Well, that's great. But then I told him, if you're not thinking about firing these muscles, they're not working, and you're just compensating. Mm-hmm. So what is the intention of your workout? What are you trying to achieve? And it made him stop and think about it too. So sometimes it takes someone to sit down and ask you those questions, slow things down, and make sure that it's working correctly. But when you go into the gym, what is your goal and outcome for that day? And if you know what it is, and you're thinking of every movement, and you can feel those muscles firing, you are going to have better results long term.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Intentionality, as the theme of this episode is, with intentional living, mind, body, and play. For those of you listening to us here on Random Fit with both Wendy Batts and I, Ken Miller, this idea of just checking boxes. I got it done, I can move forward. But what does, the more we're talking about, what does that really mean? You did it, but did you really do it? Did you really? So with exercise, I'd rather, for a lot of my clients, slow down. As you're just like you're saying, Wendy, I'd rather you do one less set, one more rep. Really feel what's happening. Think posture and position. And with a lot of people, you think about, how am I holding yourself? And unless you do that, the next question is, am I doing this right? But the first question that needs to be asked is, am I in the right position to begin with? Because everything starts with setup. So if they get their hips right, they get their spine right, they get their foot and ankle right, then whatever you do from there is going to be 10 times better than if you didn't think for those 3 seconds about your foot and ankle, your hips, and your spine. You're not going to get what you want out of it. But until you pause, think about posture and position, and then execution. So as exercise goes, go with that first. That's always my recommendation or my instruction to my clients when they're with me or when they're exercising on their own. Think about your setup first, because if you have a bad start, you're going to have a bad finish. It doesn't matter how it goes. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think this episode to me was super important, because it brought a lot to the forefront of the things that I personally was not doing that I know I can better myself with. Mm-hmm. But I think taking the time too and look at what is it that you want to achieve. If you want to really think about being mindful in your movement and your exercises, maybe find a yoga class, maybe find some time, because all that's going to do is help decrease your stress, your anxiety, and things that are taking you to a level sometimes because you're always in a hurry. You're always 2 steps forward when you're not even really taking time to be doing what you should be doing at that moment. And I really enjoyed when people were talking to me about being intentional. Ken, thank you for letting me bring this to the forefront of doing this today on our podcast. But as a personal trainer, if you really take some time to take your clients and ask them what is their intention for the day, what is their purpose for the day, and get them thinking about it, and then trying to talk them through certain things, you may gain a client for life. Like I said, this person I didn't even know before that week, and now I'm getting phone calls like, when can I get on your table and get in the gym with you again? And that wasn't my intention. I was just trying to help him better himself. And so you can gain clients out of it, but as a fitness enthusiast, if you don't know what your intention is for being in the gym and you're just going for the sake of being in the gym, then you might want to reflect again on what are your goals, and then what are you doing intentionally to achieve them. And you're going to see such a better outcome. I'm telling you, it makes a difference.
It does. It does. And the other part of that, and I think the biggest point, is that you're going to enjoy the process. If you know what your why is, you have your motivation, you're intentional, you have your physical and your mental focus on what's happening, you're going to enjoy what you're doing even more versus just like what we said, when you're just checking off boxes. So thanks for your insight on all of this. Intentional living is just something we all have to do. But whatever it is, just spend 10 more seconds on it and just see where it goes from there. But it's always about constant improvement. And speaking of constant improvement, one of the things that we want to do through Random Fit, again, is to enhance lives by giving some insight on how fitness fits in various aspects of our lives. So through this podcast, we want to give you an opportunity to win a $100 gift certificate through Amazon. All you have to do is go to the show notes. Within the show notes, there's a link. Take a survey. Let us know what we can do to improve the podcast, but as well as give us some insights on what you think about the podcast network as it is. So go to the show notes, click on the link, fill out the survey, and you will be eligible to win a $100 gift certificate from Amazon. And that's our thank you to you for helping us be a little bit better as distributors of information when it comes to health and fitness on Random Fit. So like, follow, subscribe, download, share, give us a 5 if that's a possibility on whatever platform you're listening to us on. But until next time, everybody, take care and be well.